For years, he rode across TV screens as the perfect hero. Then suddenly, in 1952, Clayton Moore disappeared from the show. Nobody knew why. Was it money? Was it control? The replacement actor failed badly. When Moore returned, he never spoke about what happened. Then, in the 1980s, a shocking lawsuit tried to strip away his mask forever. The real man behind the Lone Ranger fought battles far darker than any villain on the show. Jack Carlton Moore was born on September 14, 1914, in Chicago. He was the youngest of 3 sons. His father, Charles, was a real estate broker. The family was financially stable, even during the Great Depression. While many families were losing everything, the Moores had a live-in maid and even a vacation home in Canada. That comfort gave young Jack something most kids didn't have: freedom to dream and explore. But instead of following his father's wish to become a doctor, Jack found himself pulled toward performance and physical challenges. As a child, he was already different. By age 8, he became a circus acrobat. He wasn't just playing around, he trained hard. During summer trips to Canada, while other kids swam and played, Jack was doing flips and hanging from trees like a gymnast. It paid off. By the time he turned 19, he was part of a professional trapeze group called the Flying Bears. He wasn't just a performer, he was the catcher, the one who had to catch others mid-air. It was dangerous and demanding, but he thrived on it. That same year, in 1934, the Chicago World's Fair opened. Millions came to see the future, and Jack Moore was right there, performing high above the crowds. He did shows every day, dazzling audiences with his strength and precision. It wasn't just entertainment, it was exposure. People started to notice him. Talent scouts saw more than just his flips. They saw the camera-friendly face and charisma. That led him to a new world: modeling. In New York, Moore signed with the John Robert Powers Agency. It was a big deal. Powers was one of the top modeling agencies of the time. Moore's tall frame, strong jawline, and bright eyes made him a perfect fit. Through the late 1930s, his face showed up in ads, catalogs, and magazines. He looked like the American ideal. Modeling gave him income and industry connections. But still, something was missing. Photos were silent. Jack wanted to move. In 1938, he made a risky decision. He left New York and went to Hollywood. He didn't have a big role waiting for him, just hope, a portfolio, and his athletic skills. In those early years, he took whatever he could: bit parts, background roles, stunt work. But while others complained, Moore treated it like training. He watched how actors delivered lines. He learned how cameras moved. He understood timing, lighting, and presence. Slowly, he got better. Then came 1940. A producer named Edward Small stepped in. He liked Jack's look and talent, but thought his name was too plain. So, Jack became Clayton Moore. That name change wasn't just about branding. It marked a shift. Clayton Moore now believed he was meant for the screen. It gave him a new identity, one he fully embraced. That same year, Clayton married Mary Frances. They flew to Las Vegas for the wedding, joined by Mary's mother. A Hollywood elopement full of excitement. But it didn't last. Less than 2 years later, they were divorced. Their lives pulled in different directions. She later acted in a science fiction serial. He was just about to break through. In 1942, Republic Studios cast Clayton in Perils of Nyoka. It was a hit. He played Dr. Larry Grayson, a character who rode horses, fought enemies, scaled walls, and even performed brain surgery in caves. It was over the top, but Clayton made it believable. His face showed sincerity. His body did the stunts. That serial cost $175,010 to make, a lot at the time. But it paid off. Moore proved he had star power, and Republic quickly saw him as their next big serial hero, bigger than even Buster Crabbe. Just as his career was rising fast, Moore paused it all to serve in World War II. That same year, Moore joined the United States Army Air Forces. He wasn't sent overseas because of a knee injury from his days as a trapeze artist, but he still played a big role in the war effort. After training in Texas, he was stationed in Kingman, Arizona. There, he used his showbiz skills to create and coordinate entertainment for troops. Many of the soldiers recognized him from his movies and teased him about his roles, but they respected him. He later worked with the 1st Motion Picture Unit, making training films like Target, Invisible, which helped prepare American airmen for combat. He even spent time at the unit's base in Culver City, California. Moore said his service wasn't full of action, but he was proud of his contribution. He was honorably discharged in July 1945. Something much more personal also happened during his time in Arizona. Moore proposed to his girlfriend, model Sally Allen, over a phone call from the military base. She said yes without hesitation. She even moved to the middle of the desert to be with him. That kind of fast, wartime romance was common during the 1940s, but theirs lasted. They were married for 43 years until Sally passed away in 1986. She didn't just support Moore. She became part of the morale at the base, often joining in the shows he organized. People who worked with Moore later said that his love for Sally reminded them of the loyalty he showed as the Lone Ranger. After the war, Moore didn't waste a moment. He jumped right back into movies, aiming straight for the westerns. Between 1946 and 1947, he worked non-stop. He connected with big names like Roy Rogers and Gene Autry, and his writing skills impressed them. Moore took roles in several films, including 5 Gene Autry productions: The Cowboy and the Indians and Riders of the Whistling Pines in 1949, Sons of New Mexico in 1950, and both Barbed Wire and Night Stage to Galveston in 1952. These gave him great experience, especially working with major stars. One early sign of things to come was The Crimson Ghost in 1946, where he played a masked hero, though uncredited. He also made guest appearances on shows like The Gene Autry Show and The Range Rider. These roles helped shape the tough but good-hearted image that would later define him. Then came the role that really showed his range. In 1947, Moore played Jesse James in Jesse James Rides Again. It was shot in under a month and cost $180,497. Moore's Jesse wasn't just an outlaw. He was a man trying to do right. Audiences were hooked. He was intense, quick on the draw, and had a dangerous edge that made the character feel real. The performance was so strong that Republic Pictures ordered a sequel right away. In April 1948, Moore returned for Adventures of Frank and Jesse James. That one was even faster to shoot, just 21 days, and had a $149,985 budget. The stunts were thrilling, and though Tom Steele handled the most dangerous scenes, Moore did a lot of his own writing. These two 13-chapter serials were unusual because most Republic serials had 15 chapters, but they worked. They showed that Moore could lead a franchise and play a layered hero. In 1949, George W. Trendle, the man behind the hit radio version, was looking for someone to bring his masked hero to television. He didn't want just any actor. He needed someone who looked, moved, and sounded like justice itself. Clayton Moore walked into the audition and declared, "Mr. Trendle, I am the Lone Ranger." That confidence wasn't empty. Moore had already impressed in Ghost of Zorro and had the kind of athletic background that made him perfect for the role. He had worked as a trapeze artist in Chicago and performed in the Century of Progress Expo by the time he was 20. When the first episode aired on ABC on September 15, 1949, Moore wasn't acting. He was the Lone Ranger. But something surprising happened. Even though Moore had a rich, deep voice, Trendle didn't think it was right. He wanted Moore to sound just like Brace Beamer, the voice from the radio. Moore didn't complain. He went to a vocal coach, trained hard, and practiced until he could match every tone and rhythm. Still, Trendle wasn't satisfied. In 1950, he warned producers that Moore was drifting too far from Beamer's sound and even threatened to replace him. But Moore kept at it. He transformed his voice completely, becoming the audio and visual version fans had loved for years. The result? His voice became iconic, and he made the transition from radio to TV feel seamless. The show wasn't just about one man. When the Lone Ranger hit TV, it became a sensation. Ratings were massive. Number 7 in 1950 to 1951. Number 18 in 1951 to 1952. And number 29 in 1952 to 1953. But it was the partnership between Moore and Jay Silverheels that made it truly special. Silverheels, a real native actor, played Tonto, a major change in an era when white actors usually wore makeup to play such roles. Tonto still spoke in broken English, but Silverheels gave him dignity. Fans noticed. They said the Ranger and Tonto weren't master and servant. They were equals. That idea meant something to people. Yet, behind the scenes, things weren't so equal. In 1951, Silverheels earned $150 a week, with a $2,500 bonus. By 1954, he reached $650 per week, but still earned less than Moore. Despite that, the bond between them made the show unforgettable. And it came at the perfect time. TVs were popping up in homes across America, and families gathered around to watch the masked man and his friend ride into action. Moore didn't just look the part. He lived it. He trained Silver, the horse, himself. He performed his own stunts, galloping, leaping, and wrestling on screen, episode after episode. Even decades later, Moore would show off his skills in public, spinning his Colt 45s and thrilling fans. By age 71, he was still fit, still fast, and still the Lone Ranger. He always reminded fans that the Ranger never shot to kill, only to disarm. That was part of the code, and Moore believed in it. Then, in 1952, the unthinkable happened. Moore was suddenly replaced. John Hart stepped in, and the show went on. But something was off. Moore wasn't told why. In his book, he said he never asked. Some said it was a contract dispute. Others, including his daughter, believed he had learned about the huge profits from Lone Ranger merchandise and had maybe asked for a cut. But she also thought he wasn't the type to demand money. Trendle, meanwhile, believed the actor didn't matter, that the mask was all people needed. He was wrong. During that year away, Moore kept working. He dropped the name Clayton and went by Clay Moore. In Radar Men from the Moon, he played a villain named Graber. It was a low-budget serial, and Moore accidentally broke the lead actor's nose during a fight scene. He also appeared in Jungle Drums of Africa with Phyllis Coates, the original Lois Lane. These roles paid the bills, but they didn't match the thrill or fame of being the Lone Ranger. By 1953, Trendle had seen enough. He watched all 52 episodes with Hart and wasn't impressed. Hart was stiff, his voice flat. He slouched in the saddle. Fans didn't connect with him, and the show was slipping. Moore had a new agent, the same one who represented Silverheels. Negotiations started. Moore didn't just return, he returned with a better paycheck. Hart was quietly let go. No explanation, no confrontation. Moore simply put the mask back on, and the show was back on track. From there, Moore starred in 169 of the show's 221 episodes. When he came back, the chemistry with Silverheels returned too. Episodes felt right again. And even after the show ended on June 6, 1957, Moore didn't stop. For the next 40 years, he made public appearances as the Lone Ranger. He filmed commercials. He showed up on talk shows. He carried the character with him everywhere. He even recited the Lone Ranger's creed at events. In 1979, a court order tried to stop him from wearing the mask, but Moore fought back and won the right to keep playing the part he loved. Things also changed behind the scenes. In 1954, businessman Jack Rather bought the rights to the character. He didn't just bring Moore back, he spent his own money to film the final season in color, even though ABC was still broadcasting in black and white. He believed in the future of the show. Rather also took it to theaters. 2 feature films followed: The Lone Ranger, 1956, which made $1.55 million in the United States, and The Lone Ranger and The Lost City of Gold, 1958, shot in Eastman color. Both starred Moore and Silverheels, and both became cult classics. Clayton Moore stayed famous long after the Lone Ranger TV show ended. Through the 1960s and 70s, he kept the character alive by doing commercials. One for Gino's Pizza Rolls in 1972 was especially memorable. It even brought back his old co-star, Jay Silverheels. They wore their full costumes and played off the show's famous catchphrase, "Who was that masked man?" This time, the mystery was about who introduced them to pizza rolls. It was weird, but fun, and people loved it. Moore also did ads for Aqua Velva, where his deep, familiar voice made an instant connection. He never treated these ads as just business. He only took roles that showed the Lone Ranger as a hero with strong values. For Moore, the mask wasn't just a costume, it meant something. But behind the scenes, his life wasn't so smooth. In August 1986, just 6 months after losing his wife of 43 years, Sally Allen, Moore married again. Her name was Connie Crivello, and she had actually been Sally's nurse. That made some people uncomfortable. The marriage didn't last. By 1989, it was over. Still, in October 1986, the couple made news for something heroic. They helped an injured driver on a California freeway. Moore was in his 70s by then, but still jumped in to help. Very much like the character he played. After the divorce, things got tough. Moore was aging, struggling with his identity, and fighting a legal battle that shook him to his core. In August 1979, a shocking lawsuit hit. The Jack Rather Corporation, which owned the Lone Ranger rights, got a court order stopping Moore from wearing the mask in public. Moore was 65. He had played the Lone Ranger in 221 episodes and made countless appearances for almost 30 years. But Rather's company was planning a new Lone Ranger movie. They feared Moore's continued presence would confuse people and ruin their $18 million investment. On the day of the court hearing, Moore showed up in full cowboy outfit, white hat, and the mask. The judge asked him to remove his hat. Moore quietly left instead. The mask was too important to him. That lawsuit was more than legal. It was deeply personal. The judge, Vernon Foster, ruled that Moore could not wear the mask or call himself the Lone Ranger in public anymore. It was a devastating blow. The decision relied on an old clause in Moore's contract and a past case where Bela Lugosi's son failed to keep rights to his father's Dracula image. During the case, Rather's lawyer cruelly called Moore schizophrenic and too old to be the Lone Ranger. Moore later said, "It felt like a slap in the face." Even the judge admitted he sympathized with Moore, but said the law was clear. It ended a chapter that had lasted since 1949. But Moore didn't give up. In 1980, he partnered with Foster Grant Sunglasses. If he couldn't wear the mask, he'd wear shades. He appeared in their "Who's Behind Those Foster Grants?" campaign alongside stars like Raquel Welch and Woody Allen. In the commercials, he still wore the white hat, blue shirt, and red scarf, just no mask. Kids who saw those ads started thinking of the Lone Ranger as the man in sunglasses. It was a clever move. Between 1980 and 1984, Moore stayed in the public eye without breaking the court's rules. The glasses became a new kind of symbol. Then came the movie, The Legend of the Lone Ranger, released in 1981. It bombed. The $18 million film made only $12 million, losing $6 million. The main actor, Clinton Spilsbury, was a disaster. He looked the part but couldn't act. His lines were so bad that the producers replaced his entire voice with someone else's, James Keach. They tried to keep it a secret, but critics found out. Gene Siskel mocked the casting, saying the only question people would ask in the future was, who played him? The movie didn't even show the Lone Ranger in costume until nearly an hour in. It was slow and poorly done. Spilsbury won 2 Razzie Awards for Worst Acting. His career ended right there. The director, William A. Fraker, never directed another movie either. The battle that Clayton Moore fought wasn't just about a mask. It was about identity, legacy, and something far deeper. In September 1984, after 5 long years of legal war, the man who had played the Lone Ranger since 1949 finally won the right to wear the mask again. The case had dragged on since 1979, led by Jack Rather, who owned the rights to the character. But on September 20th, Rather suddenly dropped the lawsuit. Just weeks later, on November 4th, he died of cancer. Some believed that, facing death, Rather had a change of heart. By October 17, 1984, Moore's agent received the letter that ended it all. Jack's widow, Bonita Granville Rather, wrote that Clayton Moore was once again allowed to wear the Lone Ranger mask. Just like that, the fight was over. But Moore hadn't waited quietly. While banned from the mask, he found a clever way to keep the image alive. He wore wraparound Foster Grant sunglasses instead. He even starred in their ad campaign. The public loved it. In 1980, he appeared on the show Real People. The applause was so loud and so long that he didn't even get a chance to speak. Fans had his back. Over 1 million signed petitions. He personally received 500,000 letters. 2 years before the case ended, in 1982, Moore was inducted into the Stuntman's Hall of Fame. It honored his start as a trapeze artist and his nickname, King of the Serials. Then, in 1990, came the moment that defined his place in Western history. On March 15th, he was inducted into the Hall of Great Western Performers in Oklahoma City. He joined legends like John Wayne and Gary Cooper. That same year, he received the Western Heritage Award. In 1998, he was given the Golden Boot Founders Award, which celebrated his lifetime work in Westerns. These honors weren't just for acting, they were for who he was. Moore often said, "Playing him made me a better person." He lived by the Lone Ranger's code in real life. At every awards ceremony, he mentioned his old screen partner, Tonto, played by Jay Silverheels. Together, they had made over 200 episodes and films. But one of the biggest honors came in 1987. On June 5th, Moore was given a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. But this wasn't just any star. It read, "Clayton Moore, the Lone Ranger." No other actor had ever been allowed to have both names on a single star. It had never been done before. That day, he showed up in full costume. Fans brought lunchboxes, comics, and silver toy guns to be signed. The crowd was one of the biggest ever for a Walk of Fame ceremony. Even today, his star is one of the most visited on Hollywood Boulevard. That same year he got his mask back, 1984, Moore was added to the Western Walk of Fame in Old Town Newhall. He stood alongside icons like John Wayne and Clint Walker. Then, in 2004, his famous black mask became part of the Smithsonian's collection. It was the very one he wore after winning the court battle. That simple cloth and plastic item became a symbol of justice. In 2009, the United States Postal Service released a 44-cent stamp of Moore as the Lone Ranger on his horse Silver. Few actors ever received that kind of national tribute. In 1996, Moore wrote a book called I Was That Masked Man. It told the story of his life, from winning the role in 1949 to the lawsuit that tried to take it all away. He wrote that he got the part by simply saying, "Mr. Trendle, I am the Lone Ranger," and he meant it. The book described the pain of losing the right to wear the mask. He called it a slap in the face. But he also wrote about the kindness of fans, about the letters, the support, and about how he held no bitterness, even toward those who tried to stop him. During the 1996 book tour, he reminded everyone of the Lone Ranger's creed, that all men are equal, that one person can make a difference. The book became a hit among Western fans, not just for the stories, but for how real he was. Moore didn't just play a hero, he was one. In his personal life, Clayton Moore had seen both joy and heartbreak. He was married 4 times. His longest marriage was to Sally Allen from 1943 to 1986. They had one daughter, Dawn Angela. After Sally's death, he married again, but those unions didn't last. Then, at age 77, in 1992, he married Clarita Petroni. This time, it was different. This was peace. The two shared a quiet, loving life in his Calabasas home. He started to fade from the public eye, but he had found what he needed, someone who understood him. After he died, Clarita spoke publicly about what those last days were like. She said his body had wasted away, that it was painful to watch. "You wouldn't believe this was once the man who wore the mask," she said through tears. His strong, proud features had faded. His skin was pale and thin, but he had always protected his image. Even in his 80s, he avoided being seen without his mask. He wanted people to remember the hero, not the frailty. But in the end, he let someone in. In his final moments, lying in a hospital bed, he reached for Clarita's hand. His body barely worked. He could hardly breathe, but he still reached out. He didn't want to let go of her, of life, of the things that mattered. That moment said more than words ever could. Even as he faced death, he was trying to comfort someone else. That was Clayton Moore. That was the Lone Ranger. On December 28, 1999, Moore suffered a heart attack at his home. He was rushed to a hospital in the San Fernando Valley, but it was too late. He was 85. It was just after Christmas, just before the new millennium. The timing felt symbolic. An era had ended. He had once said, "When I take off to that big ranch in the sky, I still want to have my white hat on." In a way, he did. He was buried still wearing the legacy he built. He left behind his wife Clarita and his daughter Dawn. But more than that, he left behind a legend. One built not just on TV shows and films, but on how he lived. He filmed 169 episodes of The Lone Ranger. He made countless appearances, but he also inspired millions to live with honor, courage, and compassion.